Hey, welcome back to Getting Down with Doug. Thanks for joining me once again. This week, it's another solo edition, kind of. This part is the end of this podcast slash video will be 3 interviews with 3 amazing trainers that I know personally and that I really respect. I shouldn't say kind of, I really respect them and what they do. So I spoke to them about nervousness and how they prepare for big events. So if you're interested in what their hot take is on all those things, there's some short interviews at the end of this. For the purposes of this part of the blog slash podcast slash YouTube video, yes, I'm repurposing them every time. We're going to be talking about nervousness, how to deal with it, and I'll be giving my personal take on that. I need to stop saying kind of, or do I? I don't know. That's how we talk. All these things have become a lot more, how can I say, casual these days. We're not newscasters trying to say the perfect words all the time. I think part of the allure of podcasts is the fact that it's real people saying things. I particularly like to do it in one take because I feel like the mind can try to work things out at the same time. As you know, I'm a big fan of John Peterson, and he explains how when he talks on stage, he doesn't want to be talking at people. He wants to be talking with them, and that seems weird as a person that's presenting something. But he is trying to work things out in real time in front of you to let you in on how his mind is working. And I hope that is what I could do here too. My brain works a lot slower and a much lower level, so it'll be easier to follow for most people. We'll talk about a bit more about him in just a bit. So we are covering nervousness. It's something I'm interested in and have been for a long time, both in my capacity as a stunt person and as a yoga teacher. I've got to be honest, nowadays I probably get more nervous doing the yoga stuff than I do doing the stunt stuff, which is interesting. In a weird way, I feel like the yoga stuff matters more because these are people's lives and you're trying to touch and you're trying to improve someone's life. And I know how yoga can positively affect someone. So I don't want to fall short of that. So my nervousness very much comes from a place of wanting to do it well. And again, we'll talk more about that in this section as well as the interviews later. So how did I come about this? Well, I listened to Kevin Boyle's podcast, which I'm a big fan of all the time. And he was talking about his process of getting ready before class. And I found it so interesting because I totally forgot, or didn't think rather, that loads of teachers would have different methods to get ready before a class. But I'm sure we all do, and I'm sure there's some hilarious ones out there. So comment below if you've got a particular way you like to get ready before your class, or send me a DM, and I'd love to talk about that on the next episode. He spoke about how he likes to get to class early. He wants to be prepared, which I totally agree. He doesn't want to be in a rush when he arrives. Gets there nice and early, has a cup of tea. He kind of goes quite far. He was explaining, I was with him this weekend in Dublin. He explains how he goes there and he ends up getting there about an hour before, having a tea, chilling out, feeling out the space, making sure everything's right. And then he also spoke about in his podcast that he does his like power stances in the mirror, like hands on hips or like Superman arms up here. I tried this one yesterday, weirdly. Felt like an idiot, really, doing that one. This one, I can kind of see the purpose. I got quite sass with mine. I was like, yeah. Smash this class. So he talked about doing that, doing positive affirmations about how you're going to do in the class. And some Wim Hof breathing he does in his class sometimes, which I was very interested in. And like I said, I'm sure every teacher's got their kind of own spin on things. They've come up with some way of dealing with it. I was also interested to hear how nervousness changes amongst teachers. And I've certainly had this experience. I've had this weird trajectory of the amount of nerves I get before class changing quite drastically over the last, I'd say, 8 months. I never used to teach that much, so I'd be doing a lot of events once a year. I'd be doing 3 or 4 events a year, but not really teaching in between those events. So I guess I was never really getting past the nervous stage. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But first, what is nervousness? And nervousness is pretty much your body going, I'm gonna die, so let's help you out. So it's kind of a self-preservation thing. It comes from the limbic part of the brain, the limbic system, which is really old. You can think about it like if you had a Mac and you were able to update the Mac every year, but there was a certain part of the Mac or laptop that you couldn't change, and that was built into the very hardware of it. And because of that, there were certain misfires all the time. Not to say this is a misfire, but certainly our reaction to stresses as life-threatening is problematic. So teaching yoga class isn't life-threatening, except if Will Wheeler's your boss. Am I right? No, I'm kidding. He's a lovely guy. But the point being, it's not a big deal. But we somehow feel like it's some sort of attack on our very being. And we have an ability to feel things differently. So the responses you have to teaching yoga class, taking an exam, or dating are actually the same as if a lion is chasing you. It's just different degrees of magnitude, which is interesting to note. And what is that physical response? Well, physiologically, the body's going, right, it's time for flight or fight. Either I'm going to have to kick this lion's ass, or I'm going to have to try outrun it. Good luck with both of those things. But that's what your brain's thinking. So it takes blood from anywhere it doesn't need blood, and it takes it to the places we do need it, which is the muscles and the brain. One of the biggest places that we use blood is around the stomach. So if you're digesting something, it goes, no, not right now. It takes the blood out into the muscles instead. And that's why you get the butterflies in the stomach. This is definitely where I feel it. I feel quite nauseous sometimes if I'm really nervous before something. And that's why you feel it like that. Your pupils also dilate. You maybe start sweating in the palms because of the increased blood flow. So physiologically, that's what's happening. You're gearing up for something big, for self-preservation. And that can be very good, and it can be very bad. So like I said, if you have a life-threatening situation, you need to fight for your life, this is good. This is very good. You want to be like firing all cylinders, But if it's something smaller, like you're driving a car, then being hypertense and vigilant, it probably isn't the best thing to do. It's also not very good if you're trying to public speak, because you tend to speak at a much faster rate of pace and you breathe a lot quicker, which makes it harder to talk. So for those situations, it's not great. What it is doing is giving you energy, and that is positive. And as I believe it's Reese in the interview at the end of this, he talks about the fact that nervousness can be a great thing. I know, again, from my experience, nervousness very much comes from a place where I want to do well. It comes from another place too, which we can talk about now actually, which is that I don't want to look stupid. And that isn't necessarily a good thing. It's a very vain, egotistical thing. I don't like to look stupid in front of a crowd. I've always thought that's why I should do more acting, because they kind of force you to do real funky, weird things. And in stunts, you kind of get used to that, doing weird things and sometimes trying stuff out that doesn't look good and people kind of pulling you up on it. And I think the real trick is not to attach your identity into the thing you're doing, because then when someone criticizes the thing you're doing, you take it as a personal attack, and it's not. You might be doing something on set that looks fucking stupid, so someone should tell you so that you don't keep doing that thing that looks stupid. You should definitely try stuff out, and that's kind of, I think, all the greats in the world aren't scared to look stupid, and that gives us the superpower to really try things out. So like I said, my desire to teach a good class comes from wanting to do well and giving people all the positive things that I've been given through yoga, and from the other side, which I think is not necessarily a positive thing, being vain and not wanting to look stupid. And I should really get rid of this one, because my concern should be with the people I'm teaching at all times. It should be, how do I make this best for them? Even if that means I look stupid at some point. Normally, luckily, you not looking stupid and you helping people kind of go quite nicely together, and that's something maybe to keep in mind. If you're a yoga teacher and you get nervous for class, don't forget, people aren't there hoping you're going to do bad. They want a great class, so they're going to, they want you to do well too. That's something to remember. So, like I said, it can be good and bad in different situations. You want to try to take all the good of that nervousness, that extra blood flow to the brain and the muscles, and you want to use it effectively. You don't want to let it tire you out and drain you by overloading the system by being too nervous, but you want to use that energy to push you forward. So I looked into different ways to deal with anxiety and stresses and aversions and fears. And my first port of call, I love the man, John Peterson. I listened to quite a bit of what he had to say about how therapy or psychological therapy, what techniques they use to to help people with their aversions. And this has been around for a long time, but it's still the number one procedure, or what's a better word? Number one technique that they use, which is they get the person to break down what their fear is, their aversion is, into smaller components. And from those smaller components, they get them to voluntarily introduce themselves to those components. So say you were scared of speaking in front of a large crowd doing a presentation. You might look at the different components. One, okay, you're scared of just speaking. The sound of your voice is hard to get used to. So you may start by just talking out loud on your couch, and just getting used to that. You may then progress to a mirror. You may then progress to recording it audio first, then visual, but not show anyone. Just watch it back for yourself and get used to that. And slowly introducing yourself to more and more of those components. So then I may be talking to 1 or 2 friends doing a presentation, then a bigger group, then a big group, then a crowd. You get the idea. Very crass way I put it, but you get the idea. The important part, John Peterson says, is that it needs to be voluntary. It needs to be a choice that person makes. They choose to put themselves into that stressful environment, which is of course tough by the nature of the fact that they find it stressful. What's interesting is he points out that this doesn't make you less scared per se. It doesn't stop the induction of fear. What it does is it makes you braver. And there's an important distinction here, because if you're just dealing with being less scared, and sorry, I'm scratching my nose so much. This hay fever is killing me. It's that if you're getting rid of the fear of something, then what happens when you have the fear of something else? You have to start this process again. What he's saying is this ability to be brave comes from the fact that you have more confidence in yourself, which more often than not then will mean that you can move on to other things and you can take them on, knowing in yourself that you're braver. So it means you can go out into the world and take on lots of other tasks that may be scary, using that same system you've developed in yourself to take them on. You don't have to go through this process again. So if you're scared of public speaking and doing something in gymnastics, you may find some of the same source code is going to help you with both of those things. So I thought that was interesting. Becoming braver by voluntarily taking things on just reminded me so much of one of the big quotes I see him throw around a lot. And I'm not sure it's his. It may well come from somewhere else. But if you know anything about John Peterson, is that he is all about fables of old texts and how those archetypes relate to our life now. So his quote is, "Go out and slay the dragon in its cave before it comes to your village." And that's the point being that fears will kill you if you just sit and wait for them. It's better that you go out and you get it, because you can level the playing field by going out and meeting it halfway, or at least going to its place, which I thought was such a succinct, great way of describing how to deal with fears. I think that's an important thing to note, is that you can voluntarily get rid of your nervousness by taking on small elements. So if you're scared of teaching, maybe again it's something to just practice speaking out loud while you do your flow. Then maybe take on 2 or 3 friends, then a group, maybe assist, get that feeling, maybe just do part of the flow and then do the whole thing. But certainly voluntarily putting yourself in that situation is going to make you braver as a teacher, which is going to make you better as a teacher. Then the 3 ways in which I looked at other techniques, or rather the 3 techniques I looked at with dealing with nervousness, were Olympic athletes I was using as my base. I thought they would be a great one to use because they're competing at such a high level, and I imagine the pressure is so high that the margins for getting something wrong are so small. I imagine nervousness could really be the thing that wins or loses a match for them. They practice their technique over and over again, and it's so important they do it as they've practiced and nothing gets in the way. They want to do each part of the technique so well. Just last week at Motion, we were practicing for muscle ups on the rings. And to practice muscle up, instead of just hammering away at trying the technique and sometimes getting it, sometimes not, we practiced starting hanging in false grip on the rings, just hanging for 20 to 30 seconds. Then we'll pull it up to the chest, hang there, 20 to 30 seconds. Bottom of the dip, 20 to 30 seconds. top of the dip, 20 to 30 seconds. The idea being that if we practice each one of those elements, then the smoothness of what we do will come later. Again, when we talk about nervousness, it makes us want to do things very quickly, and technique doesn't necessarily always get better when we do things quickly. Olympic lifting is a great example of that. But actually, if you watch people doing their vinyasa flow, we always say, be vigilant, take one breath per movement. Make sure we're not mudding the lines between up dog, down dog, and chaturanga. We don't want to do that. We want to make them look specifically different from one another. And that's how we do things a bit more mindfully. With powerlifting, same thing. There's different positions all the way through. And nervousness can make us want to just pull from the floor, and our technique goes all over the place, which is going to make us tired in the long run. So that's again a case of taking that nervous energy, using it to your advantage, but not rushing things. James O'Daly gave me a great quote last week, which is, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, which sounds like a paradox, but I'm going to let that sink in with you. So what are these techniques that Olympic athletes use? Well, firstly, it's cognitive specific imagery. All of them are imageries, but cognitive specific imagery comes from this idea that if you think about the task that is making you nervous, you think about completing it, doing it, then the nervousness tends to go away. This isn't groundbreaking in any way. It's the same idea. I used to practice my flow 6 or 7 times before I would teach that day, which is not that useful because 6 or 7 hours is not an effective use of your time to teach a class. What's far more effective on your body is that you can think about what you're going to teach. You can practice it in your head over and over and over again. And that way your body doesn't get tired. But what it's shown is that, one, you get better at the task you're thinking about if you're really mindful about what you're doing. And also that nervousness starts to dissipate. This, of course, comes from the idea that nervousness is this fear that you're going to fail at the task you plan to do. So by preparing more, you take that fear of failure away. So what Kevin was doing, getting there early, making sure everything was set up, that is a great thing to do too, because it allows you to be prepared. So there's no unknowns. The fewer unknowns in the room, the less nervous you're going to be, because you can control the environment a little bit better. So if you get there and you know your music works, if you know that the temperature is correct, you know how to use the aircon. These are all silly things, but practically when you get there, you want to be prepared in your class. The more prepared you are, the less nervous you'll be, again, for that reason. There are less unknowns and you're more prepared. All right. The second one they've got is motivational specific imagery, which instead of just thinking about the task that you're going to do, you think about times you've done the task before, and you think about how you felt great, that sense of achievement and that nice feeling. So you may think about a time, whether it's stunts or yoga. If it's a yoga class, you'll think about times you have taught and it went really well, and someone came up to you and said, well done. You know, the same with stunts. Maybe a case of the time you did a high fall or fire burn and everything went fine and there were no problems. And that positive experience then you relive, and those two things cannot coexist. That positive experience of it going well and this nervous disposition that it won't go well can't coexist. So you keep thinking about that, and it's a way to drive out that nervousness. Lastly is motivational general mastery, which is coming quite neatly back to what Kevin was talking about with his techniques of positive affirmations, which is very popular with people, and also this power stance. Like this, I think he said Wonder Woman or Superman were his two things. But those hands on the hips, the positive affirmation, what you're doing is imagining yourself being confident, being focused, even if you're not. So you're very much trying to fake it before you make it. And you take on this role, you walk like you mean business, and somehow it manifests itself into reality. Again, John Peterson, rule number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. And even if you don't feel particularly confident, that is going to make you present as confident, which will make people react to you as confident, which will make you feel more confident. So you have this feedback loop working well. So those are the 3 ways in which they suggest doing it. I can definitely vouch for a lot of these. I noticed that I've got a lot less nervous over the years with my teaching. But in the 3 years I taught just events, or maybe 2 years I just taught events, didn't really teach classes in between. And the difference between this year, where I've been teaching pretty much full time for that first 6 months of this year, and then doing events, you just have so many classes under your belt. When it comes to that motivational specific imagery of how did I feel before. I just feel like I've done this so many times where I thought I was really nervous. I thought, oh, what if it goes bad? And then I do it, and every time it's okay. I would say 100% of the time, it's been fine. So there's nothing really to worry about. So I just want to go out there and smash it. So you take that nervous energy and you go out there and you do your best. And I know that it's going to be fine. So actually, I've got nothing to lose out there. I've definitely felt that now. Before, like I said, it used to make me feel very sick. And I used to question why I was even doing it. Whereas now I go out there and I'm excited. My main fear is that I forget or I don't do it as well as I'd like to. A great example was yesterday at Soho Farmhouse. I got out there and I was like, okay, I've got this cool flow. Just don't forget these little points. And without knowing before I read up on all of this, I was doing cognitive specific stuff. So on the drive there, I was imagining teaching it. And while I imagine it, I imagine all the different things that may happen or positions that people may struggle with and what I can say to lighten the mood, any in-jokes I can do. And lastly, of course, I get there early so that stress is taken away, because it's amazing how being late for something or not knowing how things work or the mic doesn't work can stress you out. And that's fine. It can stress you out. But coming back to Jordan Peterson's point of being brave or having the self-confidence, where we were talking about that motivational general mastery of believing you're confident, means that if something fails, you know that you've still got a great flow and that those things are secondary to what you're doing. Don't forget, you're there to teach them great yoga. So if there's some sort of technical failure, it can really throw you off. But I would say, forget about that. Focus on what you're there to do. And that focus is going to help you not get so flustered with all those things. So that's my little piece on nervousness. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to listen now to the interviews with 3 other teachers and hear their hot take on how to prepare for big events, as well as how to deal with nervousness, then please do listen on. Those will come up just after this. Otherwise, thanks for joining once again for Getting Down with Doug. Don't forget, we've got the retreats going to Sri Lanka in March 2020, as well as Bali in June 2020. Get your place booked in now. It's going to be amazing. Surfing, CrossFit, boxing, massages, sunshine, tans, the smell of lovely incense, the best I've smelt, if I'm honest with you. So do get hold of me at yoga@thedownwithdoug.com. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at yoga. No, that's not right. No, I'm not even on Twitter. What am I saying? I'm lying. Follow me on Instagram at thedownwithdoug.com. No, just the Downward Doug. God damn it, I've done so well throughout this. Follow me on Instagram at the Downward Doug. There we go. Wasn't that hard, was it? Listen on if you want to hear those interviews. Now, otherwise, we'll catch you next week for Getting Down with Doug. And here we go in 3, 2, 1. Katy, thanks so much for joining me here on Getting Down with Doug. I mean, I say joining me, it's more like I accosted you and then kidnapped you to do this. You're on your way out, so I'm going to make this nice and brief. Katy, tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Katy. I'm a yoga teacher and I own a yoga studio in Farnham called Ebb and Flow.
Beautiful place, beautiful place. You're not seeing on Instagram, it's got an amazing backdrop. That little silhouette thing is really cool.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. We've got some Japanese screens.
So Katy, you, like everyone else that's going to be on this podcast, were performing here today. And I don't use that word generously, you know. I want to ask you a little bit about what is your preparation for working at an event like this? Firstly, how do you get prepared? What is your process to get your class ready for this, and how different is it to a normal class?
So I'd say support from others. So I brought 2 beautiful angels with me, Leah and Susie, who were demos at the front, and just having the support from them was vital for everything, for the actual teaching of it, but also just being here with me and making sure I'm not nervous. I think in preparation for the class, I think you just have to read what's going on. Everyone seemed quite tired. I think it came to the end of Sunday, and I tried to just teach a class where they could just chill out.
Okay, so going into it, you knew that at these events, people tend to do more. They bite more than they can chew a lot of the time, right? They do so many events. So you actually built it in. You thought about what kind of audience you're going to have, and then you built it accordingly.
Yeah. And I had 2 different playlists. So if the room read a different way, I would do the different playlist.
Oh, that is good.
So I had 2 ones that I wanted to. I knew the theme, so they were both kind of love and heart orientated playlists, but one was high energy and one was mellow.
And do you use a book? Do you write stuff down, or do you just think stuff through?
I probably think about an element which helps me with my sequencing. So the element being air, because it was this back bend, heart opening class. So that helped me with my sequencing. I do use a book, but I, again, like we were saying earlier, never ever look at it. So I suppose I write it out so I know where I'm going. However, I don't necessarily reference it when I'm actually teaching.
I got you. So you just write it down to almost organize your own thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah. And we were talking there. Are you a stick figure or you're a words person?
I'm a stick figure. I love a stick figure.
Yoga teachers out there will know the difference. You got stick figure people and you got word people. I almost write things out in shorthand. Like, it makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, like we say, you shouldn't be referring to your book anyway, because I think it distracts you from the class. But it's nice to have it there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you prepare. You kind of think through what you're gonna have to deal with, what might come up, and then when you get here, having support. You said having 2 people that are demoing. I suppose that is good. That was my next question actually, which is, how do you deal with nerves? And do you get nerves now? How long have you been teaching?
You know what? My nerves have kind of gone. I've been teaching 3 years, but I at one point was teaching 25 classes a week, which was so much. And obviously I have my own studio. I'm teaching frequently. I teach 9 classes now a week. But yeah, so it's kind of dissipated my nerves. My nerves have gone, but I still get slightly nervous. But I think I try to go around, and this is what I did at the beginning, go around each person and just chat to them, because then it makes that human connection, and you're not just like talking at the front. You're actually, you know, you've spoke to that person before, and it becomes a little less nervous because you know who that person is, and that they're friendly, and that they're nice, and that you're absolutely fine standing in front of them, leading them through the class. I
think that's so handy. Kevin Boyle always talks about people in class having stink face, and if you haven't spoken to them at all and you haven't had that interaction, that's all you have to go, and you're like, oh, maybe they hate it. Whereas if you've spoken to them at the beginning, there's probably more of a chance that they're going to be like, oh yeah, it kind of, you can make those jokes, and you want, like you say, make that connection for sure.
Yeah.
Lastly, what's been your favorite thing about this festival?
Oh, people.
Oh,
I love
such a
people.
diplomatic answer. Yeah?
I love the people. I'm just, being back with, so my best friend, well, one of my best friends from my yoga teacher training that I did my training with, she's here teaching, and I never get to see her. She lives in Devon. Jacob, one of my first teachers from Edinburgh, where I first got into yoga, haven't seen him in about 4 years, and he's here. So it's just, being reconnected with people, being back with you guys. It's just,
See, we got the last mention there. Last mention.
Sorry.
No, amazing. Katy, thank you so much. That's very helpful. Safe drive back to Guildford. If you haven't checked it out already, where can we find you?
Evan Flow, Yoga in Farnham.
And Insta, hit it with the socials.
Oh, Katy Jane Simpson.
So serious. Katy Jane Simpson. Follow me, you all know. All right, that's where you can hang out with her. Thanks so much, Katy. Have a safe drive back.
Thank
Vibes
you.
around. Just in time. Look at that. Music started just behind us. Yeah. Nice to have a little bit of ambient sound. So now we're joined by my man, Reese. What's your surname?
Jenkins.
Reese Jenkins. You're proper Welsh,
yeah.
huh?
Can't get any more Welsh than that. Reese
Can
Jenkins.
you do a decent Welsh accent?
Reese Jenkins.
Oh, that's pretty good. Can you? What are the other things like you guys like to say?
Whose coat is that jacket?
Oh my God! I want to try. All right. Whose coat is that jacket?
Not bad. Not bad. I'd say like a solid 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. All right, that's not bad. I'll take that. I mean, I've done a Scouse on here before, which
didn't go down well.
Well, it's just, you know, the beauty of this podcast is you actually get to hear yourself back.
Yeah.
So it's not just in my head. It's a lot worse than I thought. It's terrible. And I'm sure there's some sort of equation that'll tell you why most accents on a long enough time scale tend towards Indian eventually.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It just ends up there.
Bizarre.
Like, how did that happen? You know, what happened there?
Yeah.
You know?
Bizarre.
All right. So, Reese, you're not from Wales.
Yeah. I was born there.
Yeah?
Yeah. Born there, lived there for 8 years.
And what is your discipline now?
I am now a strength coach.
Okay.
Fitness coach. Personal trainer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do many classes like in gyms?
So I work out of a gym in Bicester. I don't necessarily do their classes. So I don't teach CrossFit.
Okay.
But I'll do group personal training.
I got you.
And then over the weekends I'll do larger groups.
All right.
Yeah.
And you're here today. You're working with the capacity of Lululemon, right?
Exactly
that tent.
Yeah.
How many classes did you do in the end?
3.
3.
Yeah.
All
2
right.
Friday, 1 Sunday.
So as you were here, witness the questions to Katy, and let's be honest, you also helped me come up with the questions.
Yes.
You've had some time to think. So if these aren't good, by the way,
The pressure is on.
Whoa, come on.
Okay.
So the first question is,
Yeah.
how do you prepare for events like this?
Mine's really easy. Just because of the lack of equipment that we can bring, I'll go body weight. Make it real simple. I'll go low level as well, so low level technique. It just helps me coach people. It helps them feel at ease because they don't feel like they're out of their depth with what they're doing. So I can think of what I'm going to do the day before, and and then just bring it into the class. And I've done these types of session before. I actually tested this session last Sunday, so a week before. Just to see if it worked and if people had fun. So I offered that session up to people in Bicester for free, and they really enjoyed. So
I think that's a really handy thing to have, to actually have. It's funny, it's like so many things in life. The things we expect, things are never as we expect, is what I'm trying to say in a more consistent way. You'll come somewhere and things, you'll be teaching something, you'll be like, I never realized that people can struggle like when they're on their knees, if it's not on grass, for instance, silly stuff like that comes up. So it's the pragmatic stuff. So you actually have a test run with
so I had a test run. It was partnered work that I did the test run with. Just to see if that worked, if the timings were right, because obviously we're on a tight schedule. Someone comes straight after you. You need to know if that's going to run over. And just tested out a few little warm-ups to get everyone laughing, because you want the ice to be broken, right? You want everyone to feel comfortable in what they're doing, in the environment that they're in.
For sure, and I think these events, particularly like that, people coming for different reasons. If you're putting on a class at your gym, I don't know, it's a little more, not stiff, but it's a little more serious. Where these events, part of the reason someone came all the way out here to the Cotswolds wasn't just to do some training. It was to do some training with some people to have an experience. So I think you've got to build that into the class, right?
Absolutely.
So would you say your classes are different here as comparative to what they would be like at your gym?
I wouldn't push people as far as I probably would in the normal gym that I work at. Again, that fun element has to come first in my eyes. So when I'm programming, I'm thinking, right, how am I going to incorporate the fun into this? How am I going to make sure that they can do all the movements? Where's the progression? Where's the regression? Because obviously different people are going to need different levels of that technique. So
it's such an interesting skill set, isn't it? Managing people. And managing different skills of people, for sure.
Injuries, the lot. I mean, someone had said I got a sprained ankle. Fine, we'll do step burpees instead of the full burpee. Just little things like that.
And that's another one of those classic things of you don't know to prepare for that necessarily the first time around. So definitely having things in the bag to go like, I'm not tied into what's written down necessarily in my book. It's just another question. Do you write anything down for your preparation?
I'll have a piece of paper and I'll write down the order of the exercises and just go from there.
Okay.
The format that I did today was dead easy. It's just 5 exercises, so that's all I need to remember. Whereas you guys, you might have a whole list of techniques from one to the other.
But I think there's something in there too, that keeping it simple. Again, I think you always sacrifice something. So if you're going to make it complicated, you're sacrificing how much maybe engagement you can have with people. If you've got a fairly simple workout, then you can engage. You can
Absolutely.
be like, everyone knows what they're doing.
100%.
You have that free time to actually interact with people, which again I think is the important part. Then Reese, nervousness. How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching now for best part of 4 to 5 years. So I was a fitness instructor, and then took my own business. PTing for 2 years through BSc Fitness, but as a fitness coach, 4 or 5 years.
Okay, amazing. And do you get nervous still now?
Do I? I do, a little bit, like opening the class, like just before, knowing the right things to say, kind of gauging where everyone is in terms of their levels of fitness. One thing I have done is, when you're nervous, is not try to be calm, because the physiological aspects of being nervous are the same as being excitable. Like heart rate's going up, you're sweaty. So trying to be calm can actually be counterproductive. But if you become excited and you bring that energy, then I think that really helps.
That totally makes sense. And I guess it's almost the thing about being honest. Like, you're like, this is how I'm feeling. And I think you can almost stress yourself out even more by going, shit, you need to be calm, you need to be calm. I'm not calm. Why am I not calm?
Yeah.
So that is, I've never heard it described quite like that, but that is very interesting. So you almost ride that wave of excitement as opposed to trying to fight that fear. Which, different personalities work differently, but that is certainly interesting to take that energy and put it into the class as opposed to just try to stamp it out.
Exactly that. And as a fitness coach, you need that. You need to take, bring the energy, bring the fire. Yeah. So it might be a little bit different for you guys. I don't know whether you need to be in that calm frame of mind, because obviously you need to settle everyone else as well. But yeah, as a fitness coach, having that excitable kind of, way of teaching. Rather than just trying to calm yourself down is how I work.
That's interesting. It's almost like you're trying to take that energy, bottle it, and then use it to your advantage.
Exactly
as
that.
opposed to just let it
don't worry about it.
Yeah, bleed it out in other ways. Which it can have the opposite effect, where it makes people withdraw. If they get so caught up.
Absolutely.
Nice one. And favorite part of this festival?
Vegan burgers.
Mate, I haven't had one yet. I might have to go.
I've first time I've ever had one.
Do you know what type of, what were they using?
I have absolutely no idea what's in the...
Because I've been hearing a lot about Beyond... vegans are going to kill me. Beyond Meat, Beyond Burgers, I don't know. It's called Beyond something.
Yeah.
And it's a meat replacement, and people go mental for it. It tastes just like meat. We actually had it after that event.
I remember, in the pub. Yeah.
In the pub.
If I had those skills, I'd be vegan.
Yeah, well, there you go, man. Well, it's good that they're showcasing it. As you can imagine here, there's a lot of things like that going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. Well, there you go, guys.
Thank you.
Ways to keep calm, but not calm. Yeah, amazing. That's going to be the title.
Like you said, ride the wave.
Ride that wave. Reese, thank you so much, man.
No worries,
I'm going to try find some more to interview, but thanks once again for spending time with me, for getting down with Doug, and I'll catch up with you next time.
Thank you.
So, Ali, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
We've known each other all of probably 4 hours, and in that time we've spoken twice. Yeah. Tell us about who you are. What do you do?
I'm a yoga teacher. Teach vinyasa yoga, but also many different types of yoga. I'm also a gong master.
What is that? Did you say a gong master?
That's a very strange name for someone who plays gong, but yes, that's what my certificate says.
Do you play it during class? Do you incorporate that into your yoga?
Mainly workshops, and during the retreats. I run retreats with my best friend, and
very cool.
We both play our gongs and singing bowls, so it's pretty special.
God, it's funny. I've just run a retreat, and there's 5 gongs in a row.
It's amazing.
And I don't know how to play them, so we were just banging them.
Where are you based?
Well, I'm based in London, but this is in Bali.
Well, if you ever want to learn how to play a gong, come to Oxford.
I mean, this is why festivals like this are so good. I just came here hoping to teach a class. Now I'm getting offered to learn how to play a gong. I didn't ever think it would happen.
It's a super special instrument, and it doesn't really. It's not you playing the gong. The gong is playing you and everyone in the room.
And do you think it's powerful just because of the resonation that it can generate?
I think it's powerful on so many levels that I don't understand.
So, speaking of don't understanding, is the gong standing on its own and you hit it, or do you walk around with like a portable? Is there?
No, I've got the stand. It's a little bit too big. I wouldn't be able to lift it and walk around with it.
I've got you. So it's staying somewhere in the room.
Yeah.
And you do the whole class with it, or is it like a Shavasana special?
It depends. If it's a gong bath, then it's a 45 minutes just gong and different shamanic instruments. If it's a class, then it would be during Shavasana.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So you didn't have one here with you today. So you were teaching here, you were teaching your normal vinyasa.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 pretty general questions about all this.
Yeah. We're
firstly,
being popped.
I know, it's great, isn't it? What I love about
so
these
important.
microphones is now he thinks I'm someone important, which was always the case. This isn't even a recording. There's nothing in here. I just do this to get this reaction and get to talk to people.
I might have to try that trick.
Yeah, it's really good. You're really good. But there can't be 2 of us here next year. All right. So, Ali, that class you just chose to teach today.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Lovely movement in there.
Thank you.
I could watch from afar, enjoy it. In fact, unfortunately, I couldn't join because I had to eat one of my burgers that I was starving for.
It would not
just doesn't mix
well.
well.
No.
You know, I'd never understand the eating and yogaing immediately afterwards. I'd rather just do it later.
Do you know what you can eat?
Tell me.
Nuts.
I actually have nuts in my car. Who knew? Damn
nuts,
it.
Dates. And you have enough energy.
Okay. Well, there you go. Top tips here, guys. What is your process for preparing a class like that? And so I was watching from afar, and I could see that it was quite an involved flow. It wasn't a cookie cutter flow by any stretch of the imagination. It was quite very dancer-like. Like, it was very beautiful. Like, so obviously it's quite a complicated flow in terms of remembering as a teacher. How do you prepare your flows when you come to an event like this?
First of all, I always flow from my heart, so it has to feel good in my body. And I don't base my flow around yoga poses. I base it around transitions and what transitions feel good. I also like to increase the intensity as we go on. So I keep adding more difficult, more challenging transitions and postures into the flow. But I want it all to feel fluid. I want it all to feel like one process. I don't get too hung up on the posture itself. I think the posture will feel and look different for everyone. But the transitions, for me, that's where the magic happens. That's where I feel really free in my movement. And I think to make a transition look effortless, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of effort. And I really like that perfecting of the transitions.
I can't agree with you more. I think intelligent transitions are where you kind of make or break it as a yoga, because the poses themselves are there for everyone, but it's how you're cleverly, intelligently going to move someone from one place to another, especially in a way that maybe they've not thought of before. That's kind of where your creative license can come in. So you do it very tactically.
Pretty much.
So you do it in through your body first. Do you write it down or anything like that?
I sometimes do, but I try, sometimes when I come up with something new. I've been teaching for a while now, and I've done loads of different trainings as well, probably about 850 hours now.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing if I talk to a teacher, is practice with other teachers. And every teacher will teach you a transition. Every teacher will bring something to your teaching. And the more teachers you can practice with and learn from, the more interesting your flows will be. And the truth is, your flow is not going to appeal to everyone. So you just have to stay truthful to what feels good and what's right for you, and then people will follow.
It's amazing. There's an Irish teacher called Brian Malone that talks about being a magpie. I don't know if you understand the idea of the concept of a magpie stealing little bits at a time. And I agree with you totally. I think your teaching process can get so much better the more influences you have, and not even just yoga. Like there's things I go to at CrossFit and I see something
that
like
was partially dance, modern dance. What we did, there was a lot of modern dance transitions in that.
And isn't that the beauty? That's where you actually get to put your signature on something. Is if you don't put any of you into your flow, then that could be anyone. And people come partly for the yoga, but mainly for the person.
And I think you get a lot of that, and it's a shame. I do see the point of all those, 1 month trainings, and people go and they learn one flow, and then wherever you go, you are being taught the same flow. 3 sun salutations, couple of warriors, side angle, triangle, forward fold, couple of back bends, couple of forward folds, and you're done. And that's a typical vinyasa done. I mean, it works for many people. There are people who practice Ashtanga. I used to practice Ashtanga for many years, and it's the same sequence over and over again. I like to get creative. That's what works for me.
No, I think that's, like I said, it's what puts you into the actual flow. I think also your cues and how you can describe things. It can be the same flow, but described in a different way and put in your own language. But I think you've got to inject yourself into it somewhere. Otherwise, it can be anyone's. And if you are looking to make your mark in yoga, then you've got to be you. And I think that's good for anything. Like, we're all diverse and we all got a lot to offer, and if we're not brave enough to offer it, we're doing a disservice not to only ourselves but to everyone.
Absolutely.
That comes into our path.
Funny thing you said about cueing, and gosh, I could talk forever.
Well, that's encouraged on here. That is encouraged.
The most important thing when it comes to cueing as a teacher is to actually feel it. I've had an honor to study with Carlos Tao. He's one of the most incredible people I've ever met. And he kept asking why. Every time I would cue something, he's like, but why? So now if I am to cue something, I need to feel it. And then I can explain why am I cueing it. Or I, like that gig, I'm studying the anatomy and I see which muscle engages if I externally rotate my my shoulder. What happens when I do that? And then my cueing, I think from studying with Carlos, my cueing is more not just because I heard someone else cueing it, but because I felt it in my body and it feels right.
No, I can't agree more. It is one of those things you have to be careful not to just become a parrot to what you've heard before, and that happens. But I've had the opposite problem where I think too much while I'm teaching. I'm saying stuff and I'm saying why to myself, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to finish the class. I can't access the answers now. Now is not the time. But you're right. You end up, I think at the beginning of your teaching career, you'll do that. It'll be it'll be what you'll fall onto. But I would encourage people to look it up too. There was a lovely podcast done with Anna Ferretti on Yoga Land, where she had someone who's actually doing the legwork now. It has someone wearing like a bio suit, measuring how much tension is in the muscle when they're in each pose, and they go through all the different cues and go, don't jump back into chaturanga, and then they check what happens.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same as jumping back into plank and jumping and
I
this is good because this is what's going to push the sport further and make it.
Because you know what, I mean, the asana practice as it is known and the postures that we know, they're brilliant. They are brilliant. But there's so many ways we can make them better with the anatomy knowledge that we have now, understanding the fascia, understanding how the body works. It's so much better than it was 100 or 200 years ago. And yes, observing how the muscles react. I mean, Warrior 2, 90% of people have their back, the back leg, the bum side of, the glute is basically completely asleep on the back leg. No one presses the heel down. You press the heel down, suddenly it's just like, whoa.
But again, it's knowing those things, knowing why helps you so much. Because I think people react to that. If you can give them the why, most people will listen, most people will react. Otherwise, they're going to well, they always say weird stuff, so don't listen. Now, that's interesting, and like I said, that does allow us to then push the sport further and make it even more accessible. Patrick Beach is a big proponent of not doing the standard vinyasas, and he doesn't like a lot of backbends, Then you got Jason Crandall that doesn't want to teach a lot of chaturangas in his class because he says most people don't do them right anyway, so don't give them so many. But there's so many other things.
Yes.
So
90% of people don't do them wrong.
and in a class I have to be like, I don't have the 20 minutes to start teaching everyone how to do it and then trusting that you're going to do it as I've told you, not to do it a different way, because everyone starts doing it. So there are different ways you can take ownership of your own teaching and go like, I won't teach this, I will cue this, and that's amazing because then it keeps it creative for you too. It gives you that interest in the sport instead of thinking, I know all the poses now, so I'm done. Like, what a boring life that is. I want there be no end of the curriculum.
All the poses?
Yeah, exactly. And what now? Why do we do it?
Transitions coming.
Exactly. Amazing. So you're the same as me. I love this never ending, this infinite repertoire, this infinite curriculum, because I think it makes life interesting. The same reason I think people like BJJ is because there's never ending. People that do black belt and that are still learning. There's still something else to learn. And I think the older you get, you want something that is infinite when you realize that you're going to be finite. That's a side thing. Right, next question. And we went on much of a segue there. Do you get nervous before you do? How do you deal with those nerves? That's really what this is about today.
I breathe and I let myself... I remind myself that people that will like it, they will like it. And people that won't, they won't. And I remind myself to just be truthful and that it's not about me. That I'm not there for me. That I'm there to channel something special, maybe in some small way enable someone to feel a little bit more powerful, a little bit more beautiful, a little bit more part of this world. And then it doesn't matter so much anymore.
That's very interesting. So you see your purpose up there as very much a servant, and that you're quite humble with what you're giving people and hoping that in amongst there'll be something for them, and it's more about them than it is you. And I think that can be very helpful because as beginning teachers you feel like you have to demo everything and that you have to be perfect at all your demos. You have to be the most advanced at every single posture, otherwise you're a fraud. And I felt that for a long time. I'm not particularly
I think we all have, but it's
like,
absolutely ridiculous.
I wouldn't teach things that I wasn't good at, and I was like,
as long as you have someone in the room that can kind of demonstrate, or you have your words to explain it. Yeah.
Which again, a Jason Crandall, Adam Hustler special. They're like, you shouldn't have to demo everything.
No.
You know, if you're eloquent enough, if you have the command of the language, then you probably don't have to demo. But
It's a shame you weren't here yesterday, because the flow that I've taught, I simply wasn't able to demonstrate 90% because there was about 100 people pouring out of the tent, and there were mats on the grass. It was really busy yesterday, and there was no space for me.
You know what? I heard the girls talk about that. That's really cool.
It
That's
was
great,
incredible.
though, isn't it? And again, it's not about you demoing.
I didn't demo at all. I was just telling them what to do, and you see, the problem with demoing is that people look at you and they think that the shape that you're taking with your body is the only one and it's the right shape. Now, my Warrior 2 will look very different to yours. My back bend will look very different to yours. My safe back bend. So I think I'm a big believer in people finding the posture in their own body, and I'm there to make sure it's safe. And I can see the room better when I'm not displaying, demoing everything. If I'm like today, I did quite a bit of demo because of the smoothness of transitions, and also I really, really love that flow.
It's not supposed to be about you.
I know, but I just felt so good. But if I teach at the studio, I would move. I don't even have a mat in many cases. It's just I wander around, and especially when you have few people that know your flows. With complicated flows, when it's a completely new crowd, it's more challenging because they don't know your poses. They don't know the words you're using. The same words, the same postures have so many different names in yoga. I mean, as you know. But I teach in Oxford, and there's loads of people who have been coming to my classes for years now, and
And do you get more nervous doing something like an event like this, or your class, or is it the same? Is it the same kind of level of nervousness?
I have to think about it. I think doing an event makes you extra nervous just because of the number of people. Yesterday, when I looked around and I saw literally it was 100 people, I couldn't believe it, and I did get a little nervous. I think the day that I stop getting nervous, I should stop teaching.
That's interesting. It links up to one of the other guys I asked the same question to. Yeah, growing up, I was told that nervousness isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's your desire to do well.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
As long as it doesn't cripple you. Yeah.
And that is a fine line to walk, though. I think that's why I'm so interested in how people deal with their nerves. I definitely suffer from nerves, which I'll speak about in my own part, but I'm always interested to see the different ways people find how to do it. I think it's good to remember is that people, they want you to do well. It's a little bit different to being a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
Stand-up comic is a mixture of people. They kind of might want you to do well. A lot of them are going to want to watch you bomb. In a yoga class, most of the people that show up there want you to do well. So they're on board.
And the other thing is, even if you mess it up, you will be the only person who knows you've messed it up. So
that is great. That's great to hear.
Yes, that is true. So often we think that everyone knows our flow already, and you're like, oh, I left that out. You're like, no one knows.
And even if you do something, I mean, try not to, but if you do something on the left and then you forget to do it on the right and then you bring it on the right later, as long as people are balanced, they're probably not going to even notice that the order was slightly different.
I might say that sometimes they don't even notice when you switch sides. Not that should be good practice, but I think it's less important than you think. I think yoga has the capacity to do amazing things for people, but also yoga isn't about just getting all these poses right and you delivering the tightest, best class you've ever done.
No,
a lot of joy comes.
Magic's happening inside, and with postures, without postures, the magic is happening inside. And we, as teachers, we often attach such a big weight to our own performance as a teacher, while we should just trust yoga. Yoga is magical. It's special. It's got its own power. You're there as a channel and you can channel a lot, but in the end of the day, it's happening in people, not in you.
That is beautifully put. Beautifully put. All right, we'll move on swiftly. What has been your favorite thing about this festival? Although I feel like I could pander a guess here.
Yesterday's class.
I knew it was going to be that. No, that is, and how wonderful. I'm so glad for you.
I was so high when I came home. I was buzzing. It was insane. It was the biggest class I've ever taught. It felt amazing. People really enjoyed it, and the vibe, you could feel it in the air.
Oh, that's great. That is. It's
And
lovely.
I still have goosebumps when I think of that
Oh, you do the arms. You know, I'm.
I do the arms.
You know what? I opted out of it yesterday. I did another event, and I thought that would be my first time doing arms. So I've been practicing on my own, and I just couldn't do it. No, I'm sure I could do it. Couldn't isn't the right. I chose not to. Sure, why not?
You're gonna
Why not?
Okay,
All right.
so
All right.
take a deep inhale. There you go, we've ummed.
See, I don't mind doing it in classes. It's leading. It's leading. That's what you know what? As a commitment, listeners out there, you can hold me to this. I'm going to start doing it in classes because I love doing it.
It's amazing.
It's really good. And again, it comes
The
from that same place that
vibration
it's
you
not
feel
about
is-
me.
no.
It's about the people you're teaching. You're serving them. So
And
I should
no
get
one's
I should get
expecting-
over myself really. But I just that one I feel like is so personal. It's so how can I say? It's I've got a good word for this.
You feel vulnerable.
Yes, exactly that. It's weird. I'll do all the physical stuff.
Because
That's
you
my
feel
world. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel steady and comfortable in that. But you know what? What makes you vulnerable makes you beautiful.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And people will appreciate if you show them that vulnerability and share that vulnerability, because it's going to make you more real. It's going to make you a more truthful teacher.
I feel like that is a great message, and that is almost the anti-Instagram,
Totally.
and which I think is totally right. It makes
I do
people-
love Instagram. It's good fun, but you have to be very careful with who you follow.
Yeah, I found that. It's so funny as a young male. It's funny how the game for a long time was how many pretty girls can you follow, right? And then my friends were always like, oh, you got to follow, what is her name? Anna Rats. She's a model that was in Blurred Lines. One of the guys are going to kill me for not knowing her name because he loves her. But I was like, my life is hard enough with beautiful girls around me. I don't need to see them, virtually on my phone too. Like, I see them around my life. Like, I don't need that distraction, and also it's this impossible standard that we set that then you hold yourself to, and I could do without that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think you have to be responsible with who you follow, and but that thing about
I'll give
Go
you a
on,
little
please. Look at you.
advice for it. I only follow people that make me feel good.
great advice, absolutely great
I
advice.
don't follow people that make me feel in any way inadequate. I work with it if they do, because obviously it's not their problem, it's mine.
Preach.
But I don't need that. There's enough in life that can make you feel inadequate. There's enough situations when you will have to really try hard to believe you're worthy and you're enough. And you don't need extra help.
Yeah, for sure. I always say, to other people the same thing. There's going to be enough people to tell you you can't in your life. Don't be one of them.
No.
Like,
No.
you
And
know,
if something drags you down, why on earth would you
Get
invite
rid of
that
it,
into
yeah.
your life?
I can't agree more. Coming back to what you were saying about what makes you vulnerable, makes you beautiful. I feel like we're attracted to people because of their strengths, but we fall in love with them because of their weaknesses. That's the nuance in people. If you had an AI program that could teach yoga exactly perfect, I don't know if it would feel great. It's those stumbles on words. It's like people saying stuff that maybe shouldn't. That's what makes it engaging. In an interesting segue, Superman, they had to rewrite after a few years because people were getting bored because he could do everything. And they had to write Kryptonite into the storyline because they realized that no one is interested in someone who can do everything.
You can't relate to that.
Exactly.
You just can't relate. The perfect yoga teacher with the perfect figure, able to do absolutely everything.
Sounds like you're describing
Oh, definitely not. I suppose, right? Perfect yoga teacher might have cellulite and belly rolls. Totally.
But I also agree with that. I was talking to a teacher yesterday that was saying how, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying, she's a bit overweight.
Yeah.
But she was saying a lot of people were like, are you really a yoga teacher? Can you be a yoga teacher at this size? And I was like, again,
What is yoga?
Exactly. What is yoga, and what's the metric we're setting? And what is the body of someone who can do yoga? Literally,
Everybody is a yoga body.
Exactly. And this is something I think we have to fight hard. Instagram's definitely not doing us any favors, but we do have to fight against that stereotype, because it needs to be an inclusive group, for sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone where they can find you? you are someone I'm sure that will inspire them on your social media. That cheer, by the way, is for Ali herself. Yeah, that's right.
That's because I'm so awesome.
Tell them where they can find you physically as well as in the ether of the internet.
Physically, I'm based in Oxford. I teach loads of classes at pretty much majority of yoga studios in Oxford. Ali Manning. I run retreats in Cotswolds, mini retreats, and in Bali. All of my retreats for this year are now sold out. But if you fancy coming in 2020, there's some spaces for the March 2020 in Cotswolds and May 2020 in Bali. You can find me online on Instagram at _yoga squirrel.
Of course.
Or on my website, www.yogasquirrel.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, Ali. Lovely to meet you, and that insight is remarkable. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you soon. Thanks for
Take
getting
care.
down with Doug.